Hi boys and girls, Colonel Popcorn here. Today's story is called Sugar and His Special Cap, and it's written and illustrated by Regena, Harrod. I think you're going to love this book as much as I did. Now there's a very special message in this book, and it has to do with the fact that you want to always listen to whoever's taking care of you, if it's your parents or your brother or sister or your aunt, whoever it might be. And you'll know what I mean when you read the story. It's very clear. You're going to love this book. But like always, before I start my story, got to have a bite of my popcorn. Just fresh. I love it when it's fresh. And then, of course, my fruit juice. Wonderful. Great. Now let's get started. Sugar the Turkey and His Special Cap by Regena, Harrod. Bertha was a very kind older lady who lived on a small farm at the edge of town. She grew vegetables in a big garden and shared the farm with 2 cows named Hyacinth and Pansy, Mavis and Enid the pigs, a goose called Gwendolyn, several chickens, and a big yellow dog whose name was Jake. They were a happy family, and all did their parts to keep the farm running smoothly, except maybe Mavis and Enid. They just liked to lounge in the mud and sunshine and, of course, eat. But still, they were good pigs, and Bertha loved them for just who they were. Actually, Gwendolyn didn't really contribute very much either, unless one considered her as a guard goose, since she had a tendency to chase visitors who came to the farm. As for Jake, he was a good companion who loved Bertha and liked to lie on the porch and sleep. Hyacinth and Pansy gave good rich milk and cream that Bertha churned into butter to sell to the little market in town. The chickens did their part by providing a good supply of eggs. Those things, along with the fresh vegetables, made Bertha's weekly trips to the market very profitable. One day, as Bertha was sitting on the porch, relaxing, after a busy day of chores, she saw something moving in the yard. What could it be, she wondered, as she slowly walked down the steps to take a closer look. With Jake cautiously following at her heels, she moved closer to where the taller grass was hiding something. Bertha bent, parted the grass, and found a tiny little creature that looked a bit like a baby chick, only not quite. What in the world was it? Gently picking it up and thoroughly looking it over, she exclaimed, "My goodness, Jake, I do believe this is a little turkey chick." She held it down for Jake to sniff and see for himself. "Where in the world did you come from, and where is your mama?" Bertha asked as she looked around, trying to see why the little chick was all alone. No other turkeys were anywhere to be seen, so she decided she would have to protect and care for herself. And that is how Bertha became the mom to the little turkey she named Sugar, because he was so sweet. Bertha made Sugar a bed in a little box and lined it with soft, fluffy towel and put it inside where it was warm. He liked it just fine and went right to sleep as soon as she placed him inside his new bed. Poor little thing must have been so tired, and who knows how far he had walked and what had happened to his family. No matter, he was safe now and had a new family to take care for and love him. From that day forward, little Sugar followed Bertha everywhere she went, as he would have with his own mother. His favorite place to go was the garden where he ran between the tall corn stalks. He liked to jump into the cart that Bertha filled with tomatoes, beans, peas, and corn. There was one place Sugar did not like to go, and that was the chicken yard. When Bertha went to gather the eggs, Sugar followed close behind, and it seemed that the chickens didn't like this little stranger in their space. What a fuss they made! They clucked and flapped their wings so much that he was truly so frightened, Bertha had to pick him up and put him in her apron pocket until they were safely out of that wretched place. Gwendolyn wasn't that friendly either, and he would chase him everywhere he got a chance. She was just having fun, but for sure didn't see the humor at all, and would always run to the one who had become his best friend and protector, Jake the dog. Jake would let Sugar jump on his back and head, and didn't seem to mind when the little turkey tried to snuggle underneath him. Sometimes they would chase each other up and down the yard until they became exhausted. Then they would lie on the porch and take a nap. Sugar was growing so big and so fast that he no longer fit into Bertha's apron pocket, and he had to follow her into the chicken yard on his own. It seemed that those old clucking hens didn't make such a fuss any longer. He wasn't sure if they had just gotten accustomed to him or he was now larger than they were. Whatever it was, he liked it and felt very brave and grown up as he strutted right in behind Bertha. Things were changing since Sugar was getting bigger. He could no longer jump on Jake as he had in the past, but he could still into Bertha's lap while she did her knitting. He loved being close to her and have her tell him, "You're such a good boy," and he always responded with a soft, "Gobble, gobble, gobble." As the weather grew cooler, Bertha actually knitted a little cap for Sugar. Since he didn't have hair, he was afraid his little bald head would get cold. He felt very special when he wore his cap, and Bertha would tell him what a pretty boy he was. "Gobble, gobble, gobble," he answered. When Bertha put Sugar's little cap on him, he would strut around and seem to be very proud of how he looked. He didn't mind that all the other farm animals stared at him, and he was sure that they wished they had a cap of their own. He liked that. This made him stand out from the others and enjoy being different. Different is good, he decided. One day, when it was time to make the trip to market, Bertha loaded her truck with lots of fresh vegetables, butter, and eggs. When she was ready to go, she called to Sugar. "Sugar, I have a big surprise for you. Jake and I are going to market, and I think you are big enough to ride with us. Would you like that?" Well, he wasn't exactly sure what was about to happen, but if Jake was going, he was all for it. Bertha sat Sugar beside Jake right up in the front seat of the truck. If a turkey could smile, Sugar's would have been from ear to ear. Off they went, bumping down the dirt road and Bertha's old truck, Jake and Sugar's head hanging out the window. Jake's tongue was flapping in the breeze, and Sugar's newly acquired waddle was doing a dance. What an adventure! Jake barked at everything they passed, so Sugar joined in with loud gobbles. Bertha thought this was very funny and seemed to enjoy the ride as much as they did. From that day forward, Sugar rode to the market every week with Bertha and Jake, and everyone in town grew to love him as much as Bertha did. By now, Sugar was a large, full-grown turkey and full of himself. He liked to show off and would strut around the farm with his tail feathers spread in order to impress the other animals. Mavis and Enid the pigs, nor Hyacinth and Pansy, bothered to pay him any attention at all, but Gwendolyn and the chickens stayed out of his way, remembering that they hadn't been very nice to him when he was small. Sugar felt so grown up, and one day he decided he would go for a walk all by himself. He usually went everywhere with Jake. Off into the woods he wandered, giving no thought to the warnings Bertha had given him about some of the wild animals that might do harm to him if he left the farm. Deeper and deeper into the woods Sugar went, and soon he realized he was lost. Oh dear! What should he do? The sun was sinking, into the west, and it was getting dark. He didn't feel so big and brave now. Why had he disobeyed Bertha? She was probably very worried about him, and he felt terrible. Sugar began to hear scary voices, noises he didn't recognize. After all, he only knew the animals he had grown up with on the farm. He knew their sounds, and these were like nothing he'd ever heard. Sugar knew he could fly up onto a low-hanging branch and felt he would be safer there, so that's what he did. It was dark now, and he couldn't see what was walking around underneath the tree, but he could certainly hear it. Oh, if only he could have had a second chance. He would always obey Bertha, who had loved and protected him since he was a chick. Why had he doubted what she warned him of? If he ever found his way home, he would never, ever wander away again. He missed all of the farm animals, even Gwendolyn. All through the dark night, Sugar sat perched on a limb, afraid to close his eyes for fear of what might happen to him. Finally, the darkness began to fade as the sun rose in the east, and Sugar was able to feel safe enough to fly down from the tree. Oh, how he missed home and his breakfast of nice grain that Bertha always put in his special bowl. He decided he would try to find his way back to the farm, but didn't hold too much hope of that. I guess I'll just have to become a wild turkey and live in the woods all alone and never see my friends again. Sugar walked in one direction and then another because nothing looked familiar. Just as he decided it was no use, he was desperately and definitely lost. He heard a very familiar sound. It was Jake's barking, loud and strong. Then he heard Bertha calling his name. Oh, happy, happy day. I've been rescued, Sugar thought as he gobbled the loudest that he ever had in his whole life. He ran toward the sounds of Bertha and Jake as fast as his legs would carry him. Suddenly, they were there right in front of him. Jake danced around, wagging his tail and licking all over Sugar's face, while Bertha bent to give him the biggest hug he had ever had. I'm so happy to see you that I'm not even going to scold you for your wandering off, Bertha said. Sugar was sure she knew how sorry he was and that he had learned a very valuable lesson. Wow, had he ever. Bertha, Jake, and Sugar took the long walk back to the farm and to the most wonderful place Sugar ever wanted to be. And there he lived a long and happy life with Jake, Hyacinth, Pansy, Mavis, and Enid, Gwendolyn, and of course, those clucky old chickens.
I know you enjoyed that story. Remember in the beginning I said there's a lesson to be learned from this? Well, in this case, Sugar did not mind Bertha. She told him what to do and not to do, and as a result, he got lost. So what I want you to do is to listen to your parents or your family or whoever might be taking care of you. And as long as you mind them, everything will be just fine. Today's picture is by Kylie Cannon, a 6-year-old girl from Wesley Chapel. This one is a picture of her grandma, who she calls Mimi, and herself. And I love this picture because it shows that they're happy together and just having a good old time. I think this is a nice picture that this may give you an idea to do a picture of yourself and somebody close to you in your family, maybe your grandma or your mom, somebody close, and give it to them as a present. They would love that.